You know, if you've ever seen a crime show, you probably feel like you've got a pretty good sense of how to spot a liar, right? That shifty glance, the nervous tapping of a finger. But what if I told you that for decades, researchers and law enforcement have been discovering that almost everything we think we know about lie detection is, well, wrong? We're going to get to the bottom of it.
So let me just ask you straight up. Do you think you can spot a lie? We've all been trained by pop culture to look for these classic tells, the little body language secrets that are supposed to blow a case wide open. But are they really the key to finding out the truth?
The research says, not so much. See this number? 54%. That's the average person's accuracy rate at detecting lies. To put that in perspective, that is barely better than just flipping a coin. And get this, that number includes professionals, people who do this for a living. So what's going on here? Why are we so bad at this?
All right, let's dive into the deception detection problem. We're going to break down why our instincts so often lead us down the wrong path and bust some of the biggest myths out there about how to catch a liar.
This quote from the FBI really just says it all. I mean, think about that for a second. No study has uncovered any single behavior. There is no real-life Pinocchio's nose. The whole idea that one specific twitch or glance will give a liar away, it's probably the biggest myth in this entire field.
So let's just tear through a few of these myths. The idea that only guilty people get nervous? Come on, being questioned by an investigator is super stressful for everybody. An innocent person can be just as anxious, if not more so, than a guilty one. And what about avoiding eye contact? Actually, a lot of liars will do the exact opposite. They'll overcompensate with more eye contact to try and seem sincere. The bottom line is, these so-called signs of lying are really just signs of anxiety, and anyone can feel anxious, whether they're guilty or innocent.
Okay, so if we can't trust body language, what can we trust? Well, the real key, it turns out, isn't in how people move their bodies, but in how they think. Researchers have found a huge difference in the mental game plans of liars versus truth tellers when they walk into that interview room. And this is where it gets really interesting. A guilty suspect strategy is all about proactive defense. They cook up a story ahead of time, they focus on what not to say, and their default setting is to deny, deny, deny. It's a strategy of pure concealment. But the innocent suspect? They're way more passive. Their entire strategy is basically, just tell the truth. They assume their innocence is going to be obvious to everyone and that, the truth will shine through.
The research uses this brilliant analogy to explain a guilty person's mindset. It's like they're trying to deal with a tiger in the room. First, you've got the avoidance response. They're trying not to get spotted by the tiger, so they avoid mentioning any incriminating details. But if they're confronted directly with evidence, bam, they switch to an escape response. They deny it, and they try to get away from that immediate threat as fast as possible.
So you might be asking, why are innocent people so passive? Well, it boils down to a couple of classic cognitive biases. First, there's the belief in a just world, this deep-seated idea that, fundamentally, the world is fair and people get what they deserve. And second, there's the illusion of transparency, this feeling that our inner states, like our innocence, are just written all over our faces for everyone to see. The result? Innocent people just don't feel the need to come up with a strategy. And that, right there, is the crucial vulnerability that a much smarter interview technique can expose.
And that brings us to the solution. Once you understand these two very different mindsets, you can develop a much, much smarter way to interview people. It's a scientifically backed approach, and it's called the strategic use of evidence, or the SUE technique.
So the whole key to the SU technique is that it's not about accusing someone. It's an information-gathering method. The investigator has critical pieces of evidence, but they don't reveal them up front. Instead, they let the suspect tell their story first. Then, and only then, do they bring up the evidence to see if the story actually lines up with the facts.
The whole process is kind of like a game of chess. The investigator carefully plans which pieces of evidence to keep hidden. They let the suspect give their entire, uninterrupted account of what happened, essentially locking them into their version of events before they ever introduce the evidence. In that final phase, it's simply about matching the statement against the known facts. And it's right there that the lies start to unravel all on their own.
Now, this all sounds pretty clever in theory, right? But here's the million-dollar question. Does this strategic approach actually work in the real world? Can it really help investigators separate fact from fiction?
Oh yeah, the evidence is absolutely stunning. In a 2007 study, police trainees who had not been trained in this technique were accurate about 56% of the time. Again, barely better than a coin toss. But the officers who were trained in the SUE technique, their accuracy shot up to over 85%. I mean, just look at that difference. It's a massive leap.
Let's just sit with that number for a second. 85.4%. In a field where 50-50 accuracy is often the norm, getting this kind of precision is a total game changer. It's a complete paradigm shift in how to approach an interview when you're trying to find the truth.
And here is the secret sauce. The SU technique works because it stops forcing investigators to be some kind of mystical human lie detector. Instead, it creates a situation where liars trap themselves. See, because the guilty suspect has no idea what evidence the interviewer is holding, they build a story that sooner or later is going to flat out contradict the facts. The goal isn't to spot the lie. It's to expose the inconsistency between their statement and the cold, hard evidence.
And this puts Sue in a totally different category from older, more confrontational methods. Those are often really accusatory, designed to pressure a suspect into confessing. The big problem with that is those high-pressure tactics also come with a much higher risk of getting false confessions from innocent people. The Sue technique, because it's all about gathering information, is just a safer and more effective way to get to what actually happened.
So all of this leaves us with one final big question. Maybe our entire approach to lie detection has been backwards from the very beginning. Instead of trying to find these tiny, unreliable signs of a lie, maybe the real goal should be to strategically create an environment where the truth, quite simply, has nowhere left to hide.